Well, the re-signing news Preds fans have wanted to hear. It's not Philip Forsberg, it's Jeremy Lauzon. Jeremy Lauzon coming back on a pretty surprisingly long deal. We'll give our reactions to that, at what it means for the Preds bottom pair moving forward, and how it might affect some of the other Predators defensemen fighting for roster spots next year. Speaking of defensemen of the future, Luke Prokop is a WHL champion. We will take a look back at his incredible WHL championship series and whether or not his future prospects in Nashville have changed due to his breakout year in Edmonton. That is coming up today in the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
It's Tuesday. It feels like this week has been going on for 12 days now, Anna.
It does. And you know what? You know what part of it is? It's the off season, and that hurts. And we're sitting here watching the Stanley Cup Finals, getting ready to start tomorrow night. But it also hurts because we're sitting here waiting for big signing news from Nashville, and didn't exactly get that yesterday, but we got something. Like they threw us a crumb.
We got one.
We got something.
We got one, and it's not insignificant either when you look at the term and the contract. Jeremy Lauzon, who was kind of the eyebrow-raising Predators deadline acquisition last year. The Preds got him for a second-round pick, even though, his tenure with the Seattle Kraken was,
not great.
Say, less than ideal.
Yeah.
The Predators insisted, basically from the moment they got him, no, we have long-term plans for him. He is going to be a long-term project. We got him. Like, we have big plans for him. They, GMs can say that, whoever. But what the Preds did yesterday, that's not words. That is putting literally money where your mouth is. Predators giving Jeremy Lauzon a 4-year contract, a 4-year deal worth a total of $8 million. So that averages out to $2 million AAV. Yeah, and thoughts on Jeremy Lauzon sticking around in Nashville for quite some time?
I'm not terribly surprised by the signing that they locked him up for a little bit longer because, like you said, Hines and Poile have been very upfront that they see him as a piece going forward for the Predators. And he fits sort of that prototypical third pairing defenseman that I feel like they have been looking for. So I'm not terribly surprised by it. I think the thing that kind of was was the term 4 years, like 25-year-old player, 4 years, $2 million a year. It's not an insignificant signing. I mean, it is a statement about where they see Jeremy Lauzon. This isn't just let's hang on to him for a little while, see how he does. And if it doesn't pan out, we can dump him and, no big deal. I mean, it's still a movable contract, but I think it's a statement that they really do feel like Jeremy Lauzon and his style of hockey is what they're willing to invest time and money in for the Predators.
And it seems like he's going to get a long leash to kind of prove he fits into that Preds long-term identity. I mean, 4 years is a lot, especially for somebody who's had a inconsistent couple of years as Jeremy Lauzon. Now, I will say, in the short stint we saw him last year, which was only 13 games due to a couple of different injuries, Lauzon was impressive.
Yes.
With the Nashville Predators, or at least I thought he was. He's of course he's not a game-changing defenseman by any means. Like, he's never going to go out there and be like a surprise solid top 4 guy. But when you watch him play, he does. Everybody talks about the identity, Preds identity. Yeah, he does play physical. But he does make a lot of heady plays as well. You saw him kind of make the not flashy but simple good hockey IQ plays, whether it's just knocking a loose puck behind the net because there's too much traffic to try to clear, whether it's, kind of laying down to knock off a passing lane or, have the wherewithal to kind of clear the front of the net when there's a lot of traffic in front. He's not going to make, game-changing Cale Makar, Roman Josi, coast to coast kind of plays. He's not that type of guy. But from what he showed with Nashville last year, he is a guy that if he plays like that consistently is exactly the type of person you want as your fifth or sixth defenseman. A guy who can go out there and play 15, 16 minutes and, not trying to be funny by saying this, just not screw up.
Yes.
Go out there and not screw up, not make any glaringly bad plays, which, we saw a little bit better from the third pair last year. I thought their play was much improved, but historically over the past handful of seasons, they haven't gotten that style of consistent play from the third pair. So, to me, if Lauzon winds up becoming that guy, then this winds up being a pretty decent contract for the Preds.
Yeah. And it's an important piece. I agree with what you're saying. We are not going to see Jeremy Lauzon go Josi-esque. Like, this is just not his style of hockey. And I don't think that's the expectation or the need that the Predators have from him. But there is a need for a third pairing defenseman who plays like Lauzon does with, like you said, sort of less risk, as far as mistakes. There's just a need for that. And, you can say, third pairings just sort of go out there and I agree with you, just don't screw up. But that's a big job. Like, that's not nothing. And it can make or break a game. And Nashville Predators fans have seen that before. So this is an important signing for the Predators. And I do think that even in just a mere 13 games, Lauzon has shown that he can fill that role. He's probably not going to be more than that, but the Predators only need him to be that. And I think he is a guy who can fill that role really well. In 13 games, he had 48 hits, 14 blocks. This is the kind of thing that they're looking for in a third pairing. They're looking for physicality. They're looking for straight plays. They're not looking for somebody with a, Mikael Granlund hockey IQ in the third defensive pairing. They don't need that.
I mean, that would be great, but, not everybody can have that luxury.
Do they make those? Yeah, I would love to see.
Colorado and Tampa Bay have a couple, but they're also two of the best teams in the NHL over the past 3 seasons. So that's a fair point. Nashville has not necessarily had that. So I think he is going to be exactly what the Predators need in that third defensive pairing spot. He's not going to be more than that necessarily, but I think he's going to be very solid, and I think he's going to be steady. And solid and steady is really important for the Predators as they look down their defensive pairing. So I like this. I think it's good. And he's somebody, too, we saw him a couple of games last year play with Roman Josi when injuries are happening. And that's kind of somebody you also want from your bottom pair, too. Like, if there's injuries in your top 4, if your number 2 defenseman, the guy playing next to Roman Josi, goes down, like we saw Dante Fabro get hurt a lot last year, you kind of want somebody that can go up there and, not replace the guy playing with Josi, but play well enough that Josi can still be the type of player he needs to be. He's not having to change his game because Fabro's not next to him. And that is something I think the Preds struggled with before Lauzon got there, is when we talked about Dante Fabro's injury last year and how it just seemed like the Predators looked a little bit off when he was out, especially kind of in the defensive end. There's a lot of kind of broken plays that went the other way. And I think a lot of that was because they didn't have somebody who kind of understood the assignment like Dante Fabro did.
Yes.
But Jeremy Lauzon did. So I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked either, is Lauzon's ability to maybe step up into another role when needed. Again, we're not expecting him to be like a consistent, top pair, second pair guy.
Right.
But, in short bursts, if the Preds need it, if somebody goes down with an injury, suspension, whatever kind of wackiness beholds the future of the Preds, there's probably going to be a lot of it. Somebody that can go out there and give you, not game-changing minutes, but reliable minutes.
Yes. And playing with Roman Josi, even just to step into that, is a different skill set than just playing on a third line pairing. And for Jeremy Lauzon to be able to come in there and not throw Josi off of his game, to be able to, like you said, he's not going to step in and be Dante Fabro for this team down the road, but you have to have somebody that can step up when needed and not cost the Predators. And I think Lauzon is going to be that guy. You're not going to change his overall game. He's going to be a physical hitter. He's not going to be, like we said, he's not going to be high hockey IQ necessarily. But if you can take that game and, like you said, pop it in when needed, and then, bring him back out when he's done, and it not cost somebody like Roman Josi, Matthias Ekholm their game, that's a win. And I think Lauzon is that guy.
Well, it kind of ties into something I talked about on the podcast yesterday, and something I kind of have to give David Poile a little bit of credit for. That's something I want to bring up in a second, but first, I want to mention today's show brought to you by our friends at Built. Built Bar has a new flavor out. You know how we're always talking about how they're coming out with new flavors? Well, they have one called Mud Pie. For the first time ever, Built is introducing the Mud Pie flavor in both Mud Pie Bar and Mud Pie Puff. If you're not sure what they taste like, if you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this. The new Mud Pie Bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse smothered in one. Shut up, Anne.
I'm not saying, I'm literally hanging on every word because I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Mud Pie Puff. Like, talk to me about this magic.
Smothered in 100% real chocolate and topped with cookies and cream crumble. You got to try it as soon as possible, and you need to hurry because the Mud Pie Bar and Mud Pie Puff are only available for a limited time. So visit built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Hey, this sounds like a treat, but it's actually very, very good for you. All Built bars are low in calories, low in sugar, low in net carbs, but high in protein. So to help you build muscle and keep you full throughout the day. That doesn't mean they're not tasty, though. All Built bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. So if you want to try it for yourself, go to built.com, pick up a box, and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. As we're talking about free agents and decisions and the Preds investing in guys, an interesting topic that we're going to touch on tomorrow is restricted free agents, specifically Luke Kunin, because he has a big qualifying offer, not a insignificant qualifying offer, and it's not a given the Preds are going to bring him back. So that's a topic of conversation we're going to bring up tomorrow. Of course, as Ann mentioned, the Stanley Cup Finals start tomorrow. So we are going to have our official two-person preview for that. Maybe some predictions.
Yeah. Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah, bring it on. So, Ann, yesterday, speaking of the Stanley Cup Finals on the show, I talked about, things the Predators can learn from the Avalanche and Lightning. And one of the topics was, if you see a guy, if he fits in with your team, if he fits in with your vision, go get him, do whatever it takes to go get him. And I got to give David Poile, because this kind of seems like the Jeremy Lauzon story a little bit. Like Jeremy, they have big things in mind for Jeremy Lauzon. They see him as a big part of the future. They didn't mind giving up a second round pick to go get him, because they're like, we have plans for him. He's going to fit into the longer term picture. And, they also didn't mind giving him probably a little extra term yesterday as well, to go out and be like, okay, you're our guy. they're being aggressive to get the guys they think are going to fit into this team. So I got to give David Poile a little bit of credit for that.
I agree with that. And look, you can like the sort of direction that David Poile is taking this team, or sort of what they're focused on, being hard to play against, being a physical team. You can like that or not like that, but David Poile is all in on that. And at least it's a consistent vision, and you don't have to wonder, what is he looking for? He's looking for Jeremy Lauzon. This is a physical player, lots of hits, lots of contact. I mean, this is consistent with what David Poile has said this team needs to look like to compete. People can agree with that or not agree with that, but Poile is doing exactly what he says he wants to do. He is taking this team where he feels like they need to go to be competitive, and Jeremy Lauzon is a part of that. And people, I noticed that people were kind of questioning the 4 years, and I think that's a value statement. I agree with you. They're going to give him time to develop. And he's 25 years old. I mean, this is not super, this is not a super young, fresh into it guy. I mean, he's played NHL games for a while, and he's got a lot of experience, or decent amount of experience under his belt. But I think they're giving him time to settle in and be what they need him to be. I don't have a problem with this necessarily. I think he's a very, very fitting piece for exactly where David Poile has said he wants this team to be.
Yeah, I think part of that is also people still have a little PTSD from Phil Myers.
Yeah,
and the fact that they're still going to be paying him $2.5 million next season for somebody who very well may be in Milwaukee for all of next season.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about that, and let's talk about what we think the Nashville Predators defense looks like next season. It seems like we got the top 4 set with Yossi, Fabro, Ekholm, Carrier, unless there is some out of left field trade that happens. Don't put anything past David Poile. Yeah, I mean, it's the bottom of the pair is going to be interesting. Obviously, they're invested in Lauzon. He is kind of the piece there. They seem to be, Mark Borowiecki signed a 1-year extension towards the end of last year, so he'll be here next year. That seems like that might be the pair, but there's other people in the system as well. Jeremy Davies, a lot of people think he is due for a bigger chance to earn his part with the team. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of X factors out there.
There are, and I think it's very interesting when you look at that third pairing, what you need from them just kind of individually, because you look at somebody like Mark Borowiecki, and he is, again, kind of your prototypical third pairing guy. I don't know how much the Predators are going to get from Boro on ice this next season. He definitely had a number of injuries this season, getting a little bit older, but he is who you kind of would want to mentor people coming in to play this specific role that Jeremy Lauzon is coming into play. So it'll be interesting to see how much on ice Boro time there is coming up this season. But I agree with you. I think one of the things that Nashville Predators fans have been asking themselves for a couple seasons is, when is Jeremy Davies going to get a real shot to be a consistent part of this lineup? And this may be the season where he cycles in more than he has with Jeremy Lauzon. He's been a piece people have been waiting for. They have been waiting for Davies to really get a chunk of a chance, and it hasn't happened yet. But it may be, with Jeremy Lauzon locked in, this may be the chance for Davies to kind of come in and ease in this season and be ready next.
And to be clear, he is a free agent, an unrestricted free agent that the Preds are going to have to re-sign. But based on what we've heard, it sounds like there is interest from both Davies and the Preds to kind of bring him back, maybe as kind of that spare defenseman for now, because you have Matt Benning, who it doesn't sound like is going to be back next year. You have Ben Harper, who is an unrestricted free agent, who I would be That would be, oh man.
Poile's gonna Poile. Poile's gonna
Yeah,
Poile. But
let's just say I would be absolutely stunned if Ben Harper is on this team next year.
Yes.
And if it is, God help us all.
That's a whole podcast.
Yeah. But I could see them coming, and giving Jeremy Davies a chance to maybe, start as that 7th or 8th guy. And if it doesn't work out, maybe he's on waivers, something like that. But the Predators also have a lot of D men coming into the system this year, including one guy we'll talk about in a second. And it's also not outside of the realm of the possibility for the Predators to go out and get someone.
Very true.
We talked about it. Defense may be still an area where David Poile wants to make some changes next year. So maybe we're looking at a situation where, Carrier gets bumped down into kind of playing more of a support role instead of a top 4 guy. Maybe they go out and get another top 4 defenseman. So maybe somebody to play alongside Yossi, and everybody gets bumped down. Maybe they want to shore up and give Matthias Ekholm a long-term partner since, they have a big contract invested in him that kicks in next year. There's a lot of possibilities. And, you still got to think Phil Myers is out there somewhere. They're paying him $2.5 million. So I'm sure the Predators are going to want to give him a chance to maybe revitalize his game. I don't know if that's going to happen, but remember, they picked him in the Ryan Ellis trade. So they saw something in him.
They did. And, we've talked about this, the defense does need a little bit of a look, and Jeremy Lauzon may be the first piece in that. Everybody's focused on Philip Forsberg and getting a second line scorer. But I think Poile realizes that this defense needs a look. And honestly, I don't hate your idea of going out and getting a top 4 defenseman and kind of shifting something. I don't hate that. So, we'll see what David Poile wants to do in this offseason. But there are some defensemen coming up in the Predator system that are definitely worth talking about. And we're going to talk about one of my very favorites now.
Your boy, Luke Prokop.
My boy, Luke Prokop. Love this guy for on and off the ice. Really had a great time watching him at development camp and seeing his game. Really amazing season for Luke Prokop. And, let's just give kudos to our boy.
Well, it's been a breakthrough year for Prokop. So the big kicker last night is that Prokop won the WHL title with the Edmonton Oil Kings with an absolutely great series performance. He had, of course, 5 points in the first 2 games of the series and kind of was the lockdown guy for Edmonton for the rest of the series. He was named to the WHL's Player of the Week last week. He was on the Team of the Week, so he is getting some kudos. And he will try to become the 9th Nashville Predators draft pick to win a Memorial Cup. There's a lot of people that think Edmonton might be the favorite to do that. So that's definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on. And if he does, the Memorial Cup, that's the best of the best in Canadian juniors. That's a big audition for NHL teams. They are looking to see, in football, when you have all the teams playing against each other in scrimmage, they call it good on good. This is good on good. You are having the elite teams of juniors going against each other. And a lot of NHL teams watch that closely to see how well you can perform, A, on a big stage, B, against all the other people in juniors that are on your same tier. So this is going to be a big audition for Prokop, who has had an unbelievable season. And I think has sharply risen up the prospect boards a lot of people had for the Predators. This is going to be a big test for him to prove, hey, you know what? I can be a long-term answer in Nashville.
Yes. And I love that because you just never know, with these young players, what is their trajectory going to be? Where are they really going to end up? And I think this season with Luke Prokop, we've seen, okay, this young man may have some really great potential, and it may come sooner rather than later. Now, I'm not saying he's going to crack the Nashville Predators roster next season, so don't at me. But he had such a great season in Edmonton, 55 games. He had 33 points. He was, and I think this stat is bunk, but I do have to say he was plus 38.
Your favorite stat?
My favorite. It's not really a stat, but sometimes when the number's like 38, I feel like I want to mention it anyway. Playoffs, he had 16 points in the playoffs. Like, this is somebody that took an opportunity and made the most of it. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he looks like on the ice come development camp time this summer. How does his game look compared to last season? What did this season with Edmonton, what did that bring out in him? Because he has stood out. So I love this. I'm excited to see kind of where he is going into next season, but huge deal for Luke Prokop. Huge.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to kind of see his game develop this season. Because when we talked about him, sort of last season, strictly from the hockey context of it, there were a lot of people who weren't maybe as high on Prokop. They're saying, obviously a very good, smart defender, but maybe not sort of a two-way guy, maybe not somebody who is going to, fit in on the NHL level. Even our own Eric Dene kind of had him ranked, a little bit lower on the defense board, than a lot of people may have thought. And I think this year he has really kind of grown his game. You saw him kind of be more of an offensive threat this year. And we talked about it where he really wasn't, a big offensive guy in the games he had played before this season. And he wound up with 11 goals, 35 points this year. And then once he got to the playoffs, 16 points in 19 games. Yeah.
Talk about hitting your stride at the right time. That's exactly what Luke Prokop did this season. And it doesn't always necessarily translate as well to the NHL. I mean, there's growth between WHL and NHL, but I think when you look at him compared to the other prospects that are playing, this was a really great season for Luke Prokop. And I love like you said, I love what we've seen from him, that offensive side. And honestly, I want to give props to him for the playoff beard.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a baby Ryan Ellis.
It is. It's little baby Ryan Ellis. And it's not, it doesn't make me as uncomfortable as, say, Ellie Tolvanen. So props to Luke Prokop.
That's a different category, though.
I'm just saying, like, way to go for making the playoff beard not a thing to fear, but to embrace Luke Prokop. Little baby Ryan Ellis beard.
Yeah. Do you think in 5 years, if he's in Nashville, if that beard continues growing, we'll see like the remember we had like the Captain Ryan Ellis Twitter account. We'll have like first class Prokop.
I would be so here to run a like Luke Prokop ginger beard kind of thing. Like ever since I followed Ed Hockley's biceps on Twitter, like life has changed. So I am here for Luke Prokop's beard on Twitter. Here for this. Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing his playoff beard action. Hopefully there are playoffs that he can grow that in for Nashville.
It'd be nice.
Because who knows what the future holds for this team, honestly. It's wacky. It is wacky right now. There's plenty more wackiness to talk about in terms of the Nashville Predators. Of course, we have plenty of free agency to talk. There's a couple of trade pieces out on the market. Could any of them be a fit in Nashville? Those are going to be some topics we hone in on in the next couple of days. Of course, we have draft coverage coming up. We got more report cards and some crossovers with our Central Division frenemies. So plenty to get to this summer on the Locked On Predators podcast. And where can the people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_mama on ice.
I'm Nick Morgan. You can find all my work at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. While you're there, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Predators. Let us know if you ever have any topics or ideas you want us to cover on a podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us get this out to more Preds fans like yourself. And let us know what you thought of the Jeremy Lauzon trade in the comments. That's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you, everybody, for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with more free agency talk. We'll see you then.